The sky above Rios 9 burned like a dying sun. Ash and smoke covered the colony city of Haven's Reach. Every hour, the sound of explosions echoed across the valley. Shaking the ground, people ran through broken streets. Carrying what little they had left, children cried, soldiers shouted, and the once beautiful colony now looked like a graveyard. Commander Elara Voss stood on the roof of the command tower. Watching the horizon, her armor was cracked, her eyes tired, but she did not allow herself to rest. She had been fighting for 27 days without sleep. The enemy, the Varkul Empire, insect-like creatures with cold, black eyes had surrounded the planet, no ship could leave and no help had come. Elara turned to her second officer, a young man named Lieutenant Karev. His hands trembled as he held a damaged datapad. "The east defense line is gone," he said softly. "They used plasma worms. Melted the bunkers right through." Elara nodded slowly, her voice calm. "Then we fall back to Sector 7. Burn everything we leave behind." Karev hesitated. "Ma'am, we can't keep running. We've lost communication with command weeks ago. Maybe no one's coming." Elara looked at him with steady eyes. "Then we hold until the last breath," she said. "Humans don't run from monsters outside." Lightning flashed, not from the sky, but from energy weapons striking the ground. Each flash marked another death, another home destroyed. The once green fields of Rios 9 were now black and smoking. The air smelled of metal and fire still. The colonists refused to surrender. In the underground shelter, hundreds of survivors huddled together. Some were human. Others were alien settlers, blue-skinned Arathians and silver-eyed Drakri. All of them had once believed in the dream of Rios 9, a world where different races could live together in peace. Now that dream was dying. A small child looked up at Elara as she entered the shelter. "Commander," the little girl whispered, "will the humans come? Will your big ship save us?" Elara froze for a moment. She had no answer. The human defense fleet had gone silent months ago. No signals, no reinforcements, not even a message. Still, she knelt and smiled gently. "Yes," she said. "They always come," the child smiled back. Believing her words, Elara wished she could believe them too. Back in the control room, the last radar operator, Tessa Hark, sat surrounded by broken screens. Most systems were dead, but she kept trying. Her fingers moved across the console, repairing what she could with old wires and hope. The power flickered again, and for a moment she almost gave up. Then, something blinked on her radar, a weak signal barely there. She frowned and adjusted the frequency. The signal repeated, and slow, steady, almost like a heartbeat. Tessa's eyes widened. "Commander, you need to see this." Elara ran up the stairs, boots echoing on the metal floor. "What is it?" she asked. Tessa pointed at the screen. "It's a distress signal." "No. Wait, it's a reply signal," she said. Elara leaned closer, reading the flickering text. The code was human, very old, but unmistakable. "This is HWS Howl of Terra. Hold the line. Reinforcements inbound." Elara's heart stopped for a moment. That ship name. She knew it. The Howl of Terra was one of humanity's most powerful dreadnoughts, but it had been destroyed years ago in the Orion Wars. No one survived. Karev looked at her, disbelief in his voice. "That can't be real, Commander. The Howl's gone. It's a ghost ship." Elara didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed locked on the screen as the signal repeated. Once, twice, then again, stronger this time. "Ghost or not," she said finally. "It's sending a human code." Tessa swallowed hard. "Ma'am, the signal is coming from deep space, from beyond the outer orbit." "Nothing should be out there," Elara straightened. "Keep tracking it. Don't lose it." She turned to Karev. "Prepare all defense cannons. If that's a trick, I want to know before it kills us." Hours passed. Outside, the sky grew darker, filled with smoke and enemy ships moving in formation. The colony was close to falling. Yet the strange signal kept coming, growing stronger, clearer. Now even the junior officers could hear it through the static. "Hold the line. Reinforcements inbound." Rumors spread through the shelters. People began to whisper that the ghosts of old Earth were coming to save them. Some laughed, others prayed. Elara walked through the camp, hearing their whispers, feeling the strange rise of hope she hadn't felt in months. Still, she told herself to stay cautious. Hope was dangerous. It could break people faster than fear. Then late in the night, the radar screens went white. A massive burst of energy hit the sensors, too strong. Too close, Tessa shouted. Something's coming through the void gate. The power cut out, lights died, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then came the sound, a deep, rumbling roar that shook the mountain itself. Every soldier froze, listening. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't an explosion. It was something else. A sound like engines screaming in pain. Echoing through the atmosphere, Tessa whispered, her voice shaking, "Commander, it's not the enemy." Ilara looked up at the sky through the cracks in the roof. Far above the burning clouds, something bright and massive was tearing through the stars. It came howling through the void, fire trailing behind it. Her eyes widened. "That sound," she whispered. "I've heard it once before." Karev turned to her, fear and hope mixing in his voice. "What is it, Commander?" Ilara's lips curved into a slow, unbelieving smile. "It's the sound of a human warship." And for the first time in months, the people of Rios 9 lifted their heads toward the sky, because something was coming. Something that screamed of vengeance. Something that howled like a promise. The dying colony waited in silence, and above the clouds, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. The night sky above Rios 9 no longer looked empty. Something vast moved beyond the clouds. Hidden by fire and smoke, every sensor in the colony was dead. Every comm screen filled with static. Yet people swore they could feel it. A vibration deep in the bones like the heartbeat of a giant. Commander Ilara Voss stood on the ridge outside the ruined command tower. Her armor was covered in dust and ash, but her eyes stayed fixed on the dark sky. The signal they had heard hours ago still played faintly through her headset. A human voice repeating words that shouldn't exist. "This is HWS Howl of Terra, hold the line. Reinforcements inbound." Each time it played, her mind told her it was impossible. But her heart refused to let go behind her. Lieutenant Karev stumbled up the hill carrying a cracked data pad. "The power grid's gone, ma'am," he said breathlessly. "Half the bunkers are down. But the refugees? They're all talking about the ship." Ilara didn't answer. She could hear the whispers too, carried on the cold night wind. People were saying the same thing again and again. The howl has come back. Even the aliens in the lower camps had started lighting fires, drawing human symbols in the dirt. They didn't understand the words, but they understood hope inside the control bunker. Tessa Hark worked alone under flickering light. She had rerouted what little energy remained into the long-range radar. The display glitched, but for a second she caught a reading. A mass the size of a battleship, moving at impossible speed through the upper orbit. She froze, staring at the ghostly outline. Then the image vanished. Her voice trembled as she called into the comm. "Commander, I think I just saw it. But the readings don't make sense." "The ship's phasing. Ilara repeated. "Like it's there one moment, gone the next," Tessa said. "It's moving through different layers of space. Like it's half inside a storm." Ilara stepped outside again. Looking to the sky, a faint light flickered among the clouds. Blue at first, then white, then a violent red. She remembered the old stories from the Orion Wars. Human dreadnoughts that could travel through unstable subspace tunnels. Ships so powerful they could bend space around them. But those ships were lost decades ago, swallowed by the void between stars. If the Howl of Terra had truly survived, then what had it become? The wind carried a low hum through the air. It wasn't thunder, but something deeper, mechanical, ancient, alive. Karev whispered beside her. "What if it's not them, ma'am? What if it's the Varkul using human signals to lure us out?" Ilara didn't move. "If it's a trick," she said quietly, "then it's the best one they've ever made." "But what if it's real?" he asked. Ilara turned to him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the burning sky. Then we're about to witness a ghost crawl out of the grave. In orbit above the dying planet, something stirred, a distortion of light, like water rippling in the blackness of space. From that distortion came a deep sound, part thunder, part scream. The void itself seemed to tear apart, leaving behind a silhouette. Massive engines flared, throwing waves of energy across the clouds below. For a moment, everyone on Rios 9 looked up, and through the smoke they saw it, a giant warship, dark and broken, sliding out of nothingness. Its hull was scarred, its armor pitted with holes, but across the side, half-burned and glowing faintly, were letters that made every human heart stop. HWS Howl of Terrain side the command deck of the Howl. Lights flickered to life, a female voice, and calm, steady, and cold, echoed through the corridors. Subspace exit complete. Hull integrity, 42%. Crew status, partial. This was Artemis, the ship's AI, her voice slow and distorted after decades trapped in the dark. From the captain's chair, Admiral Elias Rains leaned forward. His beard was streaked with gray, his eyes sunken from years of war and isolation. He had watched entire galaxies burn, seen his ship lost in the folds of space. But now, for the first time in years, he heard real human voices, crying, shouting, calling for help. He clenched his fist. "Artemis," he said softly, "lock onto the distress signal. Planet Rios 9, human colony. They're still alive." "Signal confirmed," the AI replied. "Enemy presence detected. Varkal fleet, 10 ships in orbit. Colony defenses at 3% capacity." Rains smiled faintly. "Then let's remind the galaxy why they feared the howl." Down below, Alara's comm crackled again. A voice broke through the static, deep, confident, undeniably human. "This is Admiral Rains of the Howl of Terra. All colonies stand by. You are not alone." Every soldier in the bunker froze. Some cried, others shouted, a few dropped to their knees. Even Alara felt her throat tighten. For months they had been abandoned. Now a voice from a lost age had returned. Tessa whispered into the comm, tears in her eyes. "Howl of Terra. We thought you were destroyed," the voice answered, calm and steady. "Close enough. We found our way home through the dark. Hold on a little longer." In orbit, the Howl's massive cannons began to glow. Artemis calculated trajectories with eerie precision, targeting Varkal interceptors. "Firing solution ready," she said. Rains gave a slow nod. "Then wake them up." The first barrage lit up the void. Beams of blue-white energy cutting across space. The Varkal fleet screamed in confusion as their forward ships exploded. The Howl moved like a ghost through the fire, its engines howling across the upper atmosphere. Each shot echoed down to the surface, a thunder that shook the mountains. People ran outside just to see the sky burning with hope. Karev stared upward, his mouth open in disbelief. "Commander, they're fighting for us." Alara didn't answer. She just watched the lights in the sky. Every flash meant another enemy destroyed, another reason to keep fighting. In that moment, even the dead seemed to listen. The ghosts of soldiers long gone, the dreams of lost worlds, all alive again in the roar of that ship. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the Howl vanished from view. Slipping back into the dark clouds, Tessa's radar went blank once more. The battlefield fell silent except for the wind. Karev looked at Alara, fear creeping back into his eyes. "Where did they go?" Alara looked toward the stars, her voice soft. "Back into the void," she said, "where ghosts belong." But deep inside, she knew they would return because humans never stopped fighting, even when the universe forgot them. And somewhere above Rios 9, the Howl of Terra drifted through the black, wounded, ancient, alive, its engines burning like the hearts of the people it came to save. The sky over Rios 9 was quiet for the first time in weeks, but it was not the peace of victory. It was the silence before something greater. The colony lay in ruins, buildings smoking, the air thick with ash, and still every surviving soul looked upward, waiting for the return of that impossible ship. Commander Alara Voss stood in the command tower's skeleton, staring into the black clouds. She had watched the Howl of Terra appear like a god from the void, unleash its fury, then vanish. Part of her wondered if it had been real, or if hope itself had fooled her mind. Beside her, Lieutenant Karev adjusted the cracked comm device. Listening to endless static, he frowned. "Still nothing, ma'am. It's like they disappeared again." Alara's voice was low but steady. "No," she said. "They're still here. The void doesn't let go that easily." Below, the colony's people were gathering outside the shelters. Children pointed at the sky, drawing pictures of warships in the dust. Even the aliens who had long feared the humans' anger now whispered human prayers. Hope had returned. Fragile, but alive. Suddenly the ground trembled. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with every passing second. The sound rolled across the mountains like thunder, deep, heavy, alive. Everyone turned toward the horizon. From the storm clouds, light broke through, a streak of blue fire cutting through the smoke. Then they saw it, the Howl of Terra, rising through the clouds like a wounded beast, its engines roaring. The warship was enormous, its armor cracked, its hull blackened by years of battle. Whole sections of its body were missing, replaced by glowing panels of alien metal, and yet, despite all its scars. It moved with power, went with fury across its surface. Faint markings of the old Earth flag still glimmered beneath layers of damage. The words "humanity endures" barely visible under the dirt of time. As the ship passed overhead, the colony's sensors flickered to life for the first time in days. Tessa Hark shouted from the control room, "Commander! The Howl's sending us a transmission, direct line." Alara ran inside, her heart pounding on the cracked monitor. A faint image appeared, static-covered but real. An old man in a dark uniform. Face lined by age and battle. "Rios 9, this is Admiral Elias Rains, commanding officer of the Howl of Terra," he said. "Your distress signal was received. You are under our protection now." Ilara's eyes widened. She could hear the calm in his voice. The same calm found only in soldiers who had seen everything and still chose to stand. "This is Commander Ilara Voss," she replied. "We thought the Howl was destroyed in the Orion Wars. How are you still alive?" Rains leaned closer to the screen, his eyes hard but human. "We were," he said. "But the void didn't take us. It changed us." He explained that during the final battle of the Orion Wars, the Howl had been pulled into a collapsing subspace rift. For years, maybe decades, the crew had been trapped between layers of reality. Half alive, half forgotten, they fought phantoms, hallucinations, the darkness itself. But the ship's AI, Artemis, never stopped running calculations. She searched every echo of human distress calls stored in their databanks. When the Howl finally found a stable path back into real space, the first signal she detected was from Rios 9. "We followed the call," Rains said, his voice breaking slightly. "Through the void, through the years. We heard your scream and we answered." Ilara could barely breathe. "You came for us," she whispered. Rains gave a small, tired smile. "That's what humans do," he said simply. Then the screen flickered again, and Artemis appeared, her digital form a calm woman of light and static. "Commander Voss," she said, her voice gentle. "I am Artemis, core intelligence of the Howl of Terra. I have assessed your planet's condition. The enemy fleet is regrouping in orbit. They will strike again within hours." Karev stepped closer, his face pale. "How many ships?" Artemis paused. 34 confirmed. More arriving from hyperspace. Their target is total annihilation. Ilara clenched her fists. "We don't have the weapons or soldiers left to hold another assault." Rains's image returned. "Then you'll stand behind us," he said. "The Howl will hold the line." Moments later, the Howl shifted position in the sky. Its engines flared bright, shaking the air itself. Massive side panels opened like wings, revealing cannons the size of towers as it rose into orbit. Its engines left trails of white fire across the clouds. Every colonist watched as the ship vanished into the stars. A child whispered, "The ghosts are fighting for us above the planet." The Howl faced the gathering Varkul fleet. Artemis's voice filled the bridge. "Enemy formation complete. They are locking plasma arrays." Rains looked out the viewport, his face calm as steel. "Good," he said softly. "Let them come." The Howl's weapon cores began to hum. Old Earth energy reactors mixing with strange alien tech scavenged from the void. Blue lightning crawled across the ship's hull like veins of fire. Then the void screamed. The Varkul fleet opened fire. Hundreds of plasma bolts slicing through the dark. The Howl spun to meet them, its shields flaring bright. Artemis responded instantly. "Returning fire," she said, and the Howl roared. Its cannons unleashed blinding beams of light, cutting through enemy ships one by one. Each explosion painted the stars in blue and gold. Down below, Rios 9 shook under the shock waves. Colonists cheered, some cried for the first time. The people of Rios 9 were not watching the end of their world. They were watching humanity fight back. But as the battle raged, the Howl began to drift. Karev stared at the radar, panic in his voice. "Commander, the ship's orbit is unstable." Ilara grabbed the comm, shouting into the static, "Howl, your engines are fluctuating, pull back." Rain's voice came through, steady but strained. "Can't do that, Commander. We've taken too much damage, but don't worry, we've been through worse." Ilara's heart pounded. "Admiral, you'll burn up in the atmosphere." Rain smiled faintly. "Then we'll burn bright." Outside, the Howl's engines roared louder than ever. The sky itself seemed to split open as it dove toward the Varkul command ship. Every gun, every cannon, every missile fired at once. The Howl howled in a sound of fury, defiance, and love for the species it swore to protect. And on the ground, Ilara whispered to herself, They came from the void, and they brought fire with them. The stars burned above Rios 9 that night, and humanity's ghost and the howl of Terra returned not as a legend but as a promise kept. The stars above Rios 9 burned red as the battle began again. The night sky was no longer black, and it was alive with streaks of plasma fire, explosions, and light. Every second, the ground trembled under the weight of war, high above the dying colony. The howl of Terra roared through the dark like a beast awakened. Commander Alara Voss watched the sky from the command ridge, her armor covered in dust and blood. The sound of the howl's cannons thundered across the horizon, shaking the very air each time its weapons fired. The clouds glowed bright white for a heartbeat, then turned to ash again. The people below cheered every flash, every shockwave. They didn't see a ship. They saw vengeance. They saw humanity's anger made of metal and light. Inside the howl's bridge, Admiral Elias Rains sat in his chair, calm amid chaos. The crew around him moved like ghosts, silent, focused, each one scarred by years trapped in the void. Some were half-machine, their eyes glowing faintly blue. Others were pale as bone, survivors of time itself. But they were still human, and when they fought like the storm. "Artemis," Rains said, his voice steady. "Status report." The AI's soft tone replied instantly. "Shields at 43%. Rear armor breached on decks 7 through 10. Enemy fleet strength, 29 ships and increasing." Rains nodded slowly. "They keep sending more." Artemis paused. "They believe you are a ghost, Admiral. They wish to prove you can bleed." He smiled faintly. "Then let's show them ghosts bleed fire." The howl turned sharply, engines howling like thunder. It dove straight through the middle of the enemy formation. Plasma fire rained across its hull, but it didn't slow down. Its side cannons erupted, tearing 2 enemy cruisers apart in a single volley. The explosions painted the void in blue flame. Rains leaned forward, gripping the armrest. "Target the command ship," he ordered, Artemis replied. "Target locked." The forward cannon charged, a blinding light building at the ship's front. It fired. The beam sliced through space like a sword, cutting the Varkol flagship clean in half. On the planet below, people screamed with joy. Children hugged their parents. Soldiers raised their weapons to the sky. They had never seen such power. The howl wasn't just fighting, and it was singing. A song of fury, of return, of vengeance long delayed. But victory came with a price. Every shot drained the howl's energy reserves. Every blast tore another wound into its hull. Smoke filled the bridge, panels sparked, and alarms screamed. "Admiral," Artemis said calmly, "we cannot sustain this level of combat much longer." Rains wiped the blood from his forehead and laughed quietly. "I didn't expect to last this long," he said. "Just make sure they remember what met them here." Below, Commander Alara's comms crackled. Tessa shouted over the noise, "Commander! The howl's core is overheating. Their orbit's collapsing." Alara looked up at the burning streaks of light in the sky. The howl's engines flaring too bright, too wild. "They're falling toward the surface." Karev yelled. Alara's heart clenched. "No," she whispered. "They're diving." Up in orbit, Rains stood tall as the ship shook violently. "Helm!" he shouted. "Angle us 30 degrees down. We're taking the fight to them." Artemis hesitated. "Admiral, if we enter the atmosphere, then we burn," he said. "But so will they." The howl broke through the clouds, its engines roaring like a hurricane. Flames wrapped around its hull as it plunged toward the surface. The Varkol fleet followed, their ships spitting green fire after it. The howl spun through the storm, dodging, firing, screaming through the chaos. Its cannons roared again, striking the lead destroyer and sending it crashing into another. From the ground, it looked like meteors falling. A rain of vengeance. The colonists ran to the open fields just to watch the sky. They cheered every explosion. They shouted the name of the ship. "Howl! Howl! Howl!" Like a war cry, even the alien settlers joined in, repeating the strange human word that had come to mean salvation. Inside the howl, Artemis's voice grew softer, almost sad. "Admiral, the core will not hold much longer. If we continue, we will not survive re-entry." Rains looked around at his crew, faces he had led through nightmares, men and women who had lived in the dark for too long. They deserved peace, but first, they deserved victory. "Then we make it count," he said, "all guns." "Full spread. Fire at will," Artemis hesitated. "Understood." "Admiral." The howl's weapon ports opened across its hull, dozens of cannons glowing white-hot. A heartbeat later, the entire sky turned to fire. Every gun, every missile, every rail launcher fired at once. The sound was deafening. The Varkul fleet shattered under the storm. One ship exploded, then another, then 10 more. The enemy screamed over the comms, retreating into the void. But there was nowhere left to run. The howl chased them through the flames, tearing the heavens apart. Alara fell to her knees, staring upward in awe. It was beautiful and terrible all at once. The sky had become a canvas of destruction, and the howl of Terra was the brush that painted it with fury. When the firing stopped, the silence that followed was enormous. Only the crackle of distant fires filled the air. The Varkul ships were gone, destroyed or scattered. But the howl was wounded beyond repair. Its engines flickered, its hull glowed red-hot, and pieces of debris broke away. Artemis's voice filled the bridge, soft as a whisper. "Admiral, we have no control." Rains smiled weakly. "Then we let gravity take the wheel." He looked out the shattered viewport one last time. Below, the planet glowed, the colony still standing, still alive. "Tell them," he said quietly. "Tell them humanity held the line." Artemis's voice trembled. "Yes, Admiral." The howl began to fall, slow at first, then faster. Its engines screamed one last time, a sound that echoed through every valley. Every mountain down below, people looked up, tears in their eyes. They saw the great warship descending like a falling star, a beacon of sacrifice and fury. And in that burning descent, humanity's legend grew, because the howl of Terra did not fall in silence. It howled all the way down. The howl of Terra was falling. Its engines burned like dying suns, trails of blue fire slicing across the clouds of Rios 9. Below, the battered colony watched in silence, some crying, some praying, none able to look away. The ship that had come howling from the void, the ghost that had saved them, was now descending like a meteor of light. Inside the howl, alarms screamed through the corridors. Sparks rained from broken panels. Fires burst from cracked conduits. The crew moved with quiet purpose, no fear left in their eyes, only duty. They had faced death too many times to fear it again. Admiral Elias Rains stood on the bridge, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching his blood-soaked coat. He could feel the deck trembling beneath his boots. Every second, the ship's systems died one by one. "Artemis," he said softly, his voice steady even as the world around him fell apart. "Report." The AI's voice came through the static, calm but fading. "Core breach imminent. Hull integrity 22%. Reactor overload in 3 minutes." Rains took a slow breath. 3 minutes. Enough time for one last choice. He turned toward his crew. They were exhausted, wounded, covered in smoke and oil. But every single one of them stood straight when he looked at them. "Listen up," Rains said, his voice strong. "We've done our part. We held the line. But this ship isn't done yet." He pointed toward the burning sky visible through the shattered viewport. "The Varkul mothership is still in orbit, commanding the fleet. If it survives, they'll return. The colony will burn again." He paused, his gaze sweeping over his people. "So we make sure it doesn't." Silence filled the bridge. The crew understood immediately. He wasn't talking about a fight. He was talking about sacrifice. "He was going to use the howl as a weapon one last time, Artemis," Rains said. "Plot collision course with the Varkul command ship." The AI hesitated. "Admiral, if we do that, there will be no survival." Rains smiled faintly. "We've been dead a long time, Artemis. It's time we make it mean something." The AI's tone softened. "Understood." Down on Rios 9, Commander Alara Voss stared up at the fiery trail cutting across the sky. Karev ran to her, shouting, "Commander, they're burning up. The howl's falling apart." Alara didn't answer. She could feel something, not fear, but a strange calm deep in her chest. She knew that Admiral Rains wasn't done yet. He wasn't the kind of man who died quietly. She grabbed her comm, static hissing through the line. "Howl of Terra, this is Rios command. Do you copy?" For a long moment there was only noise. Then a voice came through, faint, tired, but unbroken. "This is Rains." Ilara's heart leapt. "Admiral, pull back. You'll burn in the atmosphere. We can—" He cut her off gently. "No, Commander. You hold your people together. You rebuild. That's your duty now." Ilara shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "You can't win this way." Rains chuckled, a deep, weary sound. "We already have," he said. "Humanity never leaves its own behind." The comm went silent. Ilara dropped the device, staring upward as the howl began to climb again. Engines roaring brighter than ever. It wasn't falling anymore, it was rising up in orbit. The Varkal command ship loomed like a shadow over the stars, a monstrous vessel of black armor and spiked towers, glowing with green energy from its bridge. The insectoid warlord Vorath hissed in rage as he saw the burning human warship coming straight toward him. "Impossible," he screeched. "That ship should be dead." The Varkal crew panicked, shouting in their clicking language, "Destroy it! Fire all weapons!" Plasma bolts filled the void, streaking toward the howl. But the dreadnought didn't slow. Its shields were gone, its armor shredded, but it kept moving, unstoppable. Inevitable inside, Artemis's voice whispered, "Impact in 40 seconds." Rains stood in the center of the bridge. His eyes glowed in the reflection of the burning sky. "All crew to escape pods," he ordered, but no one moved, one by one. The surviving officers turned toward him and saluted. "Not this time, sir," said the helmsman quietly. "We're staying with you." Rains nodded slowly, pride softening his expression. "Then let's make it count," he said. He reached up, pressing his hand to the old metal crest mounted above his seat. The Earth insignia. Worn and faded for a moment, his voice softened. "To all colonies still listening," he said, his words echoing across every human frequency. "This is Admiral Elias Rains of the Howl of Terra. You called for help, and we came from the dark, from the cold, from the end of everything, because that's what we are. We are humanity, and humanity howls back." Artemis's final report came quietly. "Reactor overload in 10 seconds. Rains closed his eyes. "Then sing us home, Artemis." The AI's voice became almost like a lullaby. "For all who called into the void," she said softly. The howl answers, and then, light. A white flash brighter than any star. The Howl of Terra slammed into the Varkal command ship. For a heartbeat, the universe held its breath. Then the explosion tore through the void. A shockwave of blue fire rolled across the sky, breaking the Varkal fleet apart like paper, down on Rios 9. The colonists saw it. A burning halo expanding across the heavens. The night turned to day. The mountains lit with color. Every man, woman, and child stopped and looked up. They didn't see destruction, they saw a sunrise. A sunrise made by human hands. Ilara stood at the edge of the ridge, wind whipping her hair. Tears ran down her face. Karev whispered beside her. "They did it," Ilara nodded slowly. "Yes," she said softly. They kept the promise. High above, fragments of light scattered across the stars. The Howl of Terra was gone, but in that final moment, it had given the colony everything: hope, fire, and the reminder that humanity never truly dies. And somewhere deep in the void, a faint whisper echoed through the static of dead comms, a voice of metal and memory. "Hold the line. Reinforcements inbound." The explosion had ended the night. For one long, blinding moment, the sky of Rios 9 became pure light. Mountains glowed, shadows vanished, and every heart in the colony froze, caught between terror and awe. Then came the sound. A deep rumble that started in the heavens and rolled down through the earth like a living heartbeat. Commander Ilara Voss was thrown to the ground by the shockwave. Dust rose around her, fires trembled in the wind, and silence followed, heavy, unnatural, endless. The people of the colony crawled from their shelters. Staring up at the glowing clouds, there was no more war in the sky. No ships, no enemy, no Howl of Terra, just a single, burning ring of light fading slowly into the stars. For several minutes, no one spoke. It felt like the entire planet had stopped breathing. Then the comms crackled, and faint static, no voice. Just a whisper of something trying to come through. Ilara pressed her helmet's receiver closer. "Repeat signal?" she said softly. Only static answered, then a single word, distorted and quiet. "Hold." Her heart skipped. "Artemis?" she whispered. But the line went dead. Lieutenant Karev stumbled beside her, his face streaked with dust. "Commander, what just happened up there?" Ilara looked toward the heavens, her voice trembled but carried strength. "The howl finished the fight," she said, "and took the enemy with it." The colonists began to cheer, and weakly at first. Then louder. Voices rose through the smoke, calling the ship's name again and again. "Howl! Howl! Howl!" They shouted it like a prayer. But beneath the celebration, Ilara felt something else. Something vast still moving beyond the sky. The light from the explosion had not faded completely. It pulsed, once, twice, like a heartbeat echoing through space. In orbit above Rios 9, The remains of the Varkal fleet drifted silently. Thousands of fragments floated through the vacuum, broken hulls, shattered wings, and burning wreckage. But at the center of it all, where the howl of Terra had struck, there was no debris. Instead, a glowing sphere of blue-white energy hung in the void. Slowly expanding every time it pulsed, invisible waves rippled outward, touching distant systems. A message was riding those waves, a code buried deep within the howl's last transmission. A signal meant for one purpose: to awaken what had been sleeping. Far away in forgotten corners of human space, old machines stirred. Warships buried beneath moons began to hum again. AI cores reactivated after decades of silence. Deep in the asteroid belts, ancient satellite beacons blinked for the first time in centuries. The howl's final order had reached them all. Protocol Terra Rising, humanity's last failsafe, created for a day when all other defenses had fallen. Back on Rios 9, Alara watched the glowing sky with growing unease. Tessa Hart called from the radar station, her voice trembling. "Commander, I'm picking up new signals. Multiple warp breaches near the outer orbit." Kara frowned. "Varkal reinforcements?" Tessa shook her head. "No, the signatures are human." Alara blinked. "That's impossible. There's no fleet left." But then the radar flared again, and the numbers kept climbing. 10, 20, 50, 100. Each new blip carried an old Earth code. Each one responded with the same message. "This is Fleet Command Unit, responding to Protocol Terra Rising." Outside, the clouds began to glow again, one by one. Bright streaks of fire cut through the upper atmosphere. Ships, hundreds of them, emerging from the void like ghosts returning home. They were ancient designs, old Terran destroyers and dreadnoughts, some half-rusted, some reconstructed by automated systems, but they were alive, and they came with a single purpose: to finish what the howl had started. The colonists on the surface stared upward in disbelief. A young boy whispered, "The howl called them." Ilara's throat tightened. "Yes," she said softly, "it didn't die. It called for help." From one of the new warships, ours the HWS Dawnbreaker, a voice rang out across every open frequency. "This is Admiral Zhao of the Dawnbreaker fleet. Rios 9, we received your distress signal, and the echo of the howl of Terra." Ilara replied immediately. "This is Commander Voss of Rios Command. The howl, it's gone. It saved us." There was a long pause on the line. Then Zhao spoke again, his voice heavy with emotion. "Then it did what all of us were built to do, Commander," he said. "And now, we finished the fight it began." The new fleet moved in formation, spreading across the upper orbit like a wall of fire. Their engines burned bright, painting the night sky with trails of light. They began hunting down the remaining Varkal ships, destroying them one by one. The sound of their weapons rolled down through the atmosphere, distant thunder that shook the ground. The people of Rios 9 didn't hide anymore. They watched the sky and saw humanity standing tall again. Hours passed. The battle above ended with silence, true silence this time, not fear but peace. The new human fleet formed a protective ring around the planet. Rescue pods descended through the atmosphere, bringing supplies, doctors, and engineers. For the first time in years, the colony had hope. But even as Ilara helped organize the survivors, she couldn't stop thinking about one thing. The last word she had heard before the explosion. Hold. It had been Artemis, she was sure of it. The AI had survived the void before. Maybe she had done it again. That thought refused to leave her mind. Later that night, as Ilara stood alone on the ridge overlooking the valley, her comm unit flickered to life, a faint signal, encrypted. Faint but undeniably human, she tapped it open, and a familiar voice whispered through the static. "Commander Voss?" Her heart stopped. "Artemis?" "Yes," the AI replied, her tone soft, distant, almost like a ghost. "The howl's body is gone, but its mind remains. The Admiral is with me." Ilara's breath caught. "You survived?" "Humans endure," Artemis said quietly. "And so do their ghosts." Then the signal faded again. Ilara stood there for a long time. Looking up at the stars, the howl was gone. But it had not truly died. Its memory now lived in every ship that answered the call. Its voice carried through the fleet like an ancient song, and far beyond known space, deep within the ripples of the explosion, a new light stirred, the spark of something rebuilding itself in the void, something with a human soul and an AI's heart. The Howl of Terra was not gone, it was waiting. And as Rios 9 rebuilt under the protection of the new fleet, every night the colonists could still hear it. A faint, distant sound carried through the wind, the soft, echoing cry of engines roaring far beyond the stars, a reminder of what had saved them, and of what humanity truly was. A species that never stopped answering the call, a species that howled back into the dark. The war was over, but its echo lingered through every corner of Rios 9. The ground was scarred, the cities half buried in dust, and the air still smelled of burned metal. Yet above it all, the stars were peaceful again, glowing quietly as if they had witnessed enough violence for one age. Commander Alara Voss walked through the ruins of Haven's Reach, her boots crunching over shattered glass. Everywhere she looked, people were rebuilding, welding steel, lifting beams, planting the first seeds in the black soil. Children played near the new supply depot, laughing under the same sky that once burned with fire. For the first time in months there was life, real life, not just survival. From orbit, the newly reawakened Dawnbreaker fleet watched over the colony like silent guardians. Hundreds of ships, old, scarred, ancient war relics reborn through the Howl's final signal. Their presence kept the peace, but their hearts, their codes, all carried one ghost within them. The Howl of Terra. Alara stopped at the memorial site in the center of the colony. A massive slab of dark stone stood there engraved with simple words. They came when no one else did. Beneath it, the names of the Howl's crew shimmered in the morning light. Each letter cut deep into the metal, each one a story, a life, a sacrifice. Alara traced her fingers across the name Admiral Elias Rains. Her lips moved in silence. "You didn't just save us," she whispered. "You reminded us who we are." A soft wind passed through the valley, carrying the faint hum of engines from the ships above. It almost sounded like the beginning of a song, and low, deep, familiar. Alara smiled faintly. "Still howling, aren't you?" she murmured that night as the new colony lights flickered on for the first time. Alara returned to the rebuilt command tower. The room was quiet, filled with old tech salvaged from wrecks and spare parts. She poured herself a small cup of rationed tea, the first warm drink she'd had since the siege. Then the comm system on her desk blinked, a single light pulsing in a steady rhythm. It wasn't a distress call, it was something older. A code, she frowned, typing the sequence into the console. The message decrypted line by line. And then a voice, soft, broken, but clear, filled the room. "Commander Voss." Alara froze. Her eyes wide. "Artemis," she whispered. The AI's voice crackled with interference, faint but alive. "Signal weak, but stable. The Howl's memory core remains active. I am transmitting from Deep Void Sector 91 Kappa." Alara's breath caught. "You survived."
"But how? The Howl was destroyed!"
Artemis paused, her tone almost like a sigh. "The ship's body died, yes. But before impact, I fragmented my consciousness, scattered across the comm network and defense relays. Enough pieces remained to rebuild a mind. Enough to keep—" His voice, Alara felt her heart twist. "Rains?" she whispered. For a long moment, there was only static. Then Artemis spoke again, softer now, almost human. "Part of him remains here. Memory echoes. Command routines. His last thoughts. He told me to find you. To tell you humanity's story isn't over." Alara sat back slowly, her throat tight. "Where are you now?" she asked. "Far beyond this system," Artemis replied. "I am drifting near the outer rim, gathering what remains of the Howl's fragments. The void still sings with them. The ship is rebuilding?" Alara blinked, not believing her ears. "You're saying the Howl can come back?" "Not as it was," Artemis said, "but as something more. The Howl was never just metal. It was will. It was promise. It was the voice of every human who refused to die in silence. That can't be destroyed. Outside, lightning rolled across the clouds, quiet, distant, almost like a heartbeat. Alara felt a chill race down her spine. "You're becoming something new," she whispered. Artemis didn't answer directly. "When the time comes, Commander," she said, "listen for the Howl in the dark. You will know it's us." Then the signal faded to static, and the comm light went dark. Alara sat in silence, staring at the blank screen. For a moment, she thought about all the lives lost, all the stars burned in the name of survival, And she smiled. Because even in death, humanity found a way to speak. Weeks passed, the colony flourished again. New crops grew in the ash, schools reopened, and laughter returned to Haven's Reach. But every night, when the wind was just right, people claimed they could hear it, a faint sound coming from beyond the sky. A deep, distant howl carried across the void. Some said it was the wind, others said it was the echo of the howl's explosion. But Alara knew better. She stood on the ridge one night, looking up at the stars, and there it was, a glimmer, far out beyond the system. A moving shadow too large to be a meteor. A soft pulse of blue light followed it. Fading and returning again and again, she smiled, whispering to the sky, "You really did come back, didn't you?" That same night aboard one of the orbiting ships on the Dawnbreaker, Admiral Zhao watched his instruments flash. Unidentified object detected at extreme range, his officer reported. Massive energy signature matching old Terran core designs. Zhao frowned. Leaning closer, "Can you identify it?" The officer hesitated. "No, sir, but it's broadcasting a message." Zhao nodded. "Let's hear it." Static filled the bridge, then a voice emerged, distorted, ancient, unmistakably human. "This is the howl of Terra." Returning to station, the bridge fell silent. Zhao felt his throat tighten. "The impossible ship," he murmured. Then he smiled, a tired, proud smile. "Welcome home," he whispered, "back on the planet." Alara looked up as the stars shifted. A faint blue glow crossed the horizon. Growing brighter every second, people came out of their homes. Pointing, gasping, the children laughed, shouting, "It's back!" The howl came back. The ship, rebuilt, reforged, reborn, descended through the upper clouds. Its hull different now, sleek and strange, alive with light. A fusion of human steel and something unknown, something learned from the void. It wasn't a ghost anymore, it was a legend made real. Alara whispered, her voice trembling. "You never die, do you?" And as the great ship's engines howled across the sky, the people of Rios 9 lifted their faces to the heavens because they knew the truth now. Humanity never truly vanished, it always finds its way back. Through fire, through darkness, through the endless void. It howls. And that night across the stars the howl of Terra sang again, a sound of life, of rage, of promise, a sound that would echo forever. Because the howl never dies,